Hello everyone. In today's video I'm going to talk about the CDC Comparadun flies. More importantly, I'm going to talk about things that are important to tie this fly, and that's CDC, silk, entrance, shuck, and Comparadun wings. About the quality of CDC, about how not to change or to change intentionally color of your silk, original color of your silk, and entrance shuck, as you can see it here, how to make one. Also Comparadun wing styles like you can see here, how to tilt them and how to keep them there without them wings tilting back towards the hook eye. Now, without any further ado, let's hop into materials and then into tying. As you can see, I'm using curved hook, and that's TMCO 2487 barbless in size 14 here. I like this hook because it's kind of like a cling hammer concept where you have body sitting a little bit deeper in the water film. That suggests vulnerability of the fly. The more deep fly sits in the water, the more vulnerable is to the fish, and it's easier for the fish to eat them. That's also the same role of this shuck. It also suggests the same thing, that this is changing insect and it's actually easy to catch. Thread, I'm gonna use Semperfli thread, and this is, as you can see here, it's waxed, classic wax 12/0 in red. I like red because it's nice trigger point for the fly. Body is silk, and I like silk because it just kind of looks natural. There are like plethora of colors available. You can use floss or this is real silk, like proper silk, but you can use that viscose material. That's also a very good substitute for the silk. Usually embroidery threads are something that you should look for, not literally something that's designated for as a fly tying material. This is a sewing thing. It's not for us fly tyers. Then thorax, I'm going to use squirrel's fur, and this is just a little pinch of dubbing to suggest maybe legs, or just give some thorax. It's not necessary for this fly. Wings in Comparadun style, they will actually occupy more surface area, thus giving more buoyancy to the fly. Another reason is, like, when you look at this fly from below, it looks like spent fly, it looks like cripple fly, it looks like emerger fly, it looks like so many things. The silhouette of this fly is literally emitting a very fragile stage of a fly, whatever that stage may be, or fish may think about it. Now let's go into tying. It's a relatively simple tie, so let's go. This is something I would use in, well, rather wide variety of hooks, from 18 to, well, let's say 12. I'll start everything with just a couple of wraps here behind the eye. That's a bad start. And because this is not slippery as nano silk, I can actually start cutting it here. And now you can add, if you want, this high-vis micro floss, and when you finish the fly, just fold it back over. And that's what I'm going to do, so you can see the idea behind it. I'm going to leave it just a tad longer than I would actually have it on my fly. Or let me just back up here, and you can use the trap, catch it as like this, and you don't have to bother with catching or twisting the bobbin holder or whatever. After a couple of wraps, just cut it. I'm not cutting it flush, just a little bit of taper there is fine. Now, soft wrap and pull up, soft wrap, pull up to pull down technique to keep everything on the top of the hook shank. Keep the thread flat until you reach the point where you want your trailing shuck to be, which would be somewhere around here. Tilt the vice so the thread doesn't jump down, or like this, it will jump up, but like horizontal, it will keep it leveled. Take some Entron, and I'm using Entron in, let me check, Ginger variant, and that's something I use for years for all of the trailing shocks, regardless of what color is the insect, because chitin as a component of the trailing shocks and skeleton of those flies is kind of this color, and this color is only thing you need for trailing shocks. At least that's the theory my friend told me so many years ago, and yeah, I keep to that theory up to date. Now, keep your thread away from Velcro because it can get damaged, and then just brush everything. You don't have to be super careful because as you brush it, it will taper it automatically here, as you can see. Later on, if you wish, you can cut it a little bit, but it's not necessary. Now, I promised something about silk changing color. So this is the original silk that I'm using for this fly. As you can see, it's like rather shiny, but I chose, let me just show you, to wax it, give it a little bit darker and mate look. So also waxing it, I'm using dubbing wax, rather soft. This is handmade by my friend from Serbia, and I'm using it for waxing my threads most of the time because it's super soft. It doesn't damage silk. If you use a pure wax, which is kind of hard, make sure that you soften it between your fingers so it doesn't fray the fibers, gentle fibers of your thread. After you wax it, you will see that it becomes a little bit darker than original thread, and that's the permanent color you get from your silk. So it doesn't change anymore unless you put something dark like this thread underneath. I'm doing it on purpose here. I'm also using something like ribs, but this is almost too similar. So ribs, as you can see, are not super visible, which I'm okay. I'm just getting different shades here. And let's go on. I'll just spin the bobbin holder counterclockwise and catch those two silk strands near the trailing shack. Okay, just cut it here and you will soon see why. Now it's up to you what kind of CDC you want to use. As I was saying, better CDC you need less CDC feathers to have your fly. If you use worse CDC, the one I'm buying in those bags, then you have to use more feathers. But to be honest, among all of these feathers, there are a couple of them that are pretty good. So you can always choose and pick some that are like more than decent for the fly over here. So I would use like 3 or 4 feathers in this case. Align the tips. And now, fourth one. I have those tips relatively aligned. And now I'm just gonna take this, keep it together. Only tips have to be aligned. Orientation of the feather is not so important. I want feather that extends to be, let's say, 1 hook length. So from here up until here, I'll just measure. And let me see, this looks pretty okay. And then let's go towards the front where I want to tie off. I'll just give myself maybe 1.5 hook length for the Comparadun style. Couple of reps towards the rear. Now give it a cut and taper it as much as you can. so. Tapering it will reduce the bulk, but also you will catch those CDC feathers wear more securely, because you're catching them in you're catching them in layers, as you can see, and I'm getting taper as well. Spinning the bobbin holder counterclockwise, and now just reduce the bulk going over in turns. Check if I left enough room. Yes, I did. I didn't go forward by accident. Now it's time to just wrap the silk towards the front. If you wax it a lot, then the thread will actually let the red color show more than if you wax it less. So it depends on you what you want to do. If you want, you can take one more layer and give it a little bit of kind of more colorful look here. The more wax, the more kind of greenish it becomes. But as you can see, it shows near the tail more red than it does up here. Just one trap is enough. Just trap it with one wrap here. Now be gentle, cut it. If you make some sudden move, it may jump. Now I want another layer of this that will give a little bit more color. I forgot to twist it, and I'll twist it in clockwise direction. Clockwise direction will just make it easier for me to wrap. And you can see those ribs showing up only here, very discreet. I honestly doubt, and I'm quite sure that those ribs won't make any difference for the fish. Some people would disagree, but they do look very nice. The whole body looks kind of semi-translucent without proper color. Like, you can't tell what color this is, but it looks relatively realistic. Now take some squirrel dubbing from the box. I don't want my dubbing to be matted down, so I'm just using it like this, fluffed up. It's way more easier to dub. Okay, and I'll just cover behind the CDC, so this red part. So I won't go any further to the front. Now take CDC in batches, pull them behind. Okay, just gonna help it here. So take CDC in batches, pull the thread down and towards the back. Another batch is here, pull it to the front and to the back. To pull it and pull the thread down and to the back. Same here, couple of times. And the last one should be here. Don't worry about this high vis. Now, put your thumb against the barbs, kind of manipulate them, and then go with your thread towards the back, pushing those barbs. It works exactly the same way as it works for deer hair. Now this will remain in the position, and the reason why I remained with my thread back is when I pull this, it's very easy to catch it here. If you try to do it from the eye towards the back, it's super difficult. Now just have one or two wraps over it, and that's enough. I want to do the whip finish, and that's all. I don't want to create any excessive bulk on the head. So I'm just gonna cover everything up with the whip finish, not with the wraps. Let me just place the... Okay. That's called a struggle. Now let's back off. Sometimes it's easier to do it with hands, I guess. Well, maybe not. As I was saying, keep your thread here at the back, pull, and catch it here. And now, preferably with flat thread, make a whip finish. Flat thread will make whip finish lay much smoother and align properly without breaking. And yes, it's a bit easier to do it with hands. I know what is the problem. The angle is a problem here. Repositioning the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, and going down. The thread was twisted, that's why it broke. Manipulate the wings a little bit, and you got yourself a very nice Comparadun style wing fly, emerger, spent, cripple, call it whatever. Fish will say the last word for it. Now, because the thread broke, I'll just add tiny little drop of super glue over here. Even though it broke probably in a safe way, let's call it that. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to risk it. I'll just drop a drop of super glue later on. So guys, thank you very much. I hope you learned something new. I hope you learned something from my mistakes in this video. And until next time, keep safe and tight lines.